Miami is one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, enjoying a 5-game win streak and heading to the Mile High City for a rematch against the Denver Nuggets. So we brought back Brendan Tobin to help us make sense of the streak, what to expect moving forward, and to give us his take on Jimmy Butler's incredible collaboration with Fallout Boy. This show has got it all, so sit back and enjoy another great episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com. Joining me as always, longtime NBA reporter David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We're joined today by Brendan Tobin. You know him from Tobin and Leroy, 10 to 2, Mondays through Fridays on 560 WQAM. Also, you could find it live streaming on YouTube. Great friend of the show, one of our favorite guests to talk Heat hoops with. Tobin, how satisfying was that win in Portland?
Oh, man, it meant a lot. It meant a lot, especially the way it started. It almost was a little bit sweeter because, like, you could see them getting their hopes up, and Ayton was having a good game, and it was very sweet, especially to top it off with some "Let's Go Heat" chants. That makes it all the better. I'm jealous of you boys. I mean, you drew the ire of Blazers Reddit, which is, I mean, it sounds like the depths of hell. But I was so proud that you guys had gotten to the point where you've irritated them, where they had to just know that you were on their minds going into this game.
It doesn't take much to piss them off. Like, I think they've been pissed off since David made his initial request there. So I'm not exactly sure exactly what it is that they were even trying to say with that a little attack on us. But you know what? You're right. There's no bad publicity in this game. So what do you think of the idea that, you know, maybe Heat fans have been taking a little bit too much joy out of that one win? Because I mean, I think it was a big win. At the same time, just to build on the win streak, and the Blazers are kind of justifying as, you know what, it doesn't really matter, we're tanking anyway, it's not like we really care. But I think that's mostly just a reaction to having lost the game in the first place.
I mean, is it bullying from the Miami Heat fan? Yes, it's bullying. I mean, we're dancing on a pathetic team, but yes, they deserve it. They were, so crazed this offseason and swearing up and down that they got this haul for Damian Lillard, which they didn't. And I don't understand, like I saw them yesterday saying, well, Kamara did better than Jovic. I'm like, great. I mean, congratulations on your consolation prize, everybody. I'm sure you guys haven't been watching what Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic have been doing all season. You guys look like you're just, with all the infirmary that's there on the bench, you guys look like you're having a great time with everything you got for Damian Lillard, and Scoot Henderson has that one game. I mean, no, it's going great. So is it mean? Yes, but they deserve it.
One thing I noticed during this road trip, whether it's the stuff in Portland or our favorite fan in New Orleans and the fighting that happened on the court in New Orleans, Heat fans they have adopted the identity of the organization and that they are the meanest, nastiest fans in the NBA, and I am here for it. I am totally here for, hey, we're going to go to your arena, we're going to take over with Let's Go Heat chants, Mike Bibby's going to complain about it, we're going to have all these things, and that's just what we do. We come in waves, we're everywhere, we're in every arena across the country, including Kaseya Center, but not limited to, and I'm totally here for that being the identity of Heat fans. That said, Tobin, we're going to talk about the Heat's win streak. We're going to play a new segment called Glass Half Full later on, but we have got to start today's show with the return of Emo Jimmy. Jimmy Butler is the star of a new Fall Out Boy music video. It's called So Much for Stardust. I think that's also the name of the new album that's going to be coming out. Jimmy is in his full emo attire. He's wearing a purple cowboy outfit. There's glitter involved. He's dancing. He's playing guitar. He's looking into mirrors and glass balls. And I'm not really sure what's going on here. But Tobin, what was your reaction when you saw the music video?
Just delight, because it's so funny that we get into the point where, he is bought so fully into all the memes that are Jimmy Butler. I mean, probably one of the most memeable stars there was anyway when you think about it. But now he's just fully gone into, this is the time of year where I really care, and this is the time where it really matters to me. And also, this is why I'm so much different than everybody else, because we're coming off All-Star Week, which is like the bane of his existence. Nobody cares less about All-Star Week than Jimmy Butler. And I'm watching all these interviews day after day because we have ESPN on in the radio studio, and I'm seeing Tatum and Giannis, and they're all being asked these hard-hitting questions of who's going to be the face of the league after LeBron and Steph leave. And Tatum's like, I think it can be me. And here's Jimmy Butler. He goes, you know what I spent my time doing? Hanging with Fall Out Boy. And that's just what he has got, there are, I guess, downsides to having Jimmy Butler, and in that you go through this like Christmas swoon of, are we sure this is all worth it every now and then? But then like when you do get to the other end of it and you can see what a great basketball player he is, and then you add on top of it how much extra stuff he brings from persona. This is what you love about the guy. He's so unique in that he's going to march to his own beat. And I thought it was hilarious because that was probably the most memorable thing from media day from any team.
Yep.
And now it's in the midst of a rock band's music video.
I love it. I love that it brought Fall Out Boy back to I don't know that Fall Out Boy was ever gone, but it kind of brings him back into my world a little bit as somebody who grew up listening to them, like some classics, some bangers that they had. And it was a band that I had not really thought about a lot of until Jimmy Butler's in the music video. So just for me, a millennial, seeing these things collide in my world on a Wednesday afternoon, I was like, what is my life right now? I want to go back to a point that you said, though, Tobin. You mentioned some of the stars at All-Star break, used the word unique, and it's kind of where I wanted to take this. I think Jimmy Butler is the most unique superstar that the NBA has ever had. And I think he's got a legit case to be that for so many different reasons, not just because of the off-the-court sort of the things that he's doing with coffee, the fact that he's not really hanging out with rappers, he's hanging out with Fall Out Boy. He doesn't play that kind of music. He's like, I'm all in country music in the locker room. The emo Jimmy, the dreadlock Jimmy, like at media day, just memeing himself all the time, where superstars like Michael Jordan, they got memed when they were too self-serious. And Jimmy Butler is never self-serious when it comes to some of this stuff off the court. And then on the court, he does not play like a superstar for 80% of the regular season. And then he just turns into a superstar at the end of the regular season and into the playoffs. And I don't know what the rest of his career looks like, but he doesn't have a ring right now. And if he retires without a championship, I still think he's going to be remembered as a winner, despite all of these things. And I don't remember that anybody's had a career quite like Jimmy Butler on the court. And then obviously all the extracurriculars and the fun stuff that make him such a star in the league. And I don't know. Is he the most unique superstar, I guess is my question, that the league has ever had?
He's one of them. I mean, I think it's what makes him unique about this time is like, I don't think he doesn't care, but he's not going to let anybody, he's the anti-Kevin Durant. Like, he's not going to let anybody dictate his feelings on anything. You guys have interviewed him. He's almost a contrarian whenever you ask him. You could ask him, Jimmy, how did you feel about the game today with the sky blue? He goes, we could have won with the sky blue. I mean, we could have won with it green. Like, he's never going to buy into any narrative.
Right. There was no game today.
Yeah, like that there is, but I just like it because he just seemed like, we all know this about Jimmy Butler. As much as we talk about, the roller coaster that can be his regular season, the dude does work very, very hard. He plays a very, very physical style, and he's very clearly one of these people that is exhausted by the grind of basketball and needs some kind of release. And I don't know what it is about him that he's able to weave into these extra worlds. Like, the guy was really close friends with Mark Wahlberg, like he'll be like, sitting there and he's like, yeah, I'm interacting with all these big country stars and I'm going to put 70 tracks together. And they're all looking at him like, yeah, of course we want you around here. But I think he really always seems to respect what they do. The things with Neymar, the places he goes in different countries. I think that's what's really cool about him is I think he's one of the more inclusive NBA stars that there is, because he really does seem to like connect all these worlds. Even you look at somebody locally like Coco Gauff, having that kind of tie with him, him and Matthew Tkachuk having their little bromance during the Panthers and the Heat runs coinciding. So I think that's the cool thing about him is, he's not the most like traditional guy in that everything. Winning matters to him, but it's also like, but other stuff also matters a lot to him too. And I think that that's the cool thing about him, is that he's not just carved out by basketball. He's going to have all this other stuff. And I really feel like when his career is over, whatever the hell he ends up doing, like, we're going to not stop hearing about Jimmy Butler. Probably not tied to the Heat like all the other guys are, but he'll be off doing something.
It's such a good point. Like, he's not even dragged like for peer pressure into the same circles that these other players. Like, he's got like Bernie Lee is his agent. He's not part of CEA. He's not part of Clutch. He's not. He's not dragged. He's not at the Michael Rubin white party. He's not doing these things. He's just like off.
He'd show up in black if he were. That's the whole thing.
But he's just off with his own friends. He's creating his own circles, and it's such an interesting thing because he does seem so disconnected from the rest of the superstars in the NBA, and yet still he's one of the biggest faces in the NBA. But he's also playing some great basketball lately. It's a big reason why the Miami Heat are rounding the corner. What do we make of this Heat win streak? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by our partners over at eBay Motors. They've teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. He's got Duop Reith. We just saw him with the Portland Trailblazers. He's a high-energy guy. He could be able to get some minutes, especially if DeAndre Ayton continues to miss time. You got DeAndre Hunter with Trae Young out. He might get a bump in his production. Benedict Mathurin in Indiana. He's been a big part of what's got them going lately. He's been providing some incredible offensive spark, but you've also got Dennis Schroeder after the trade now in Brooklyn. They've got very little to look forward to, but Schroeder has been productive in his role there. And Corey Kispert, one of the few bright spots, if you could even call it that, with the Washington Wizards. Wes, who do you have? Because I'm leaning towards Mathurin. I think he's been really productive. He had a big game earlier this week. Unfortunately, in a loss for the Pacers, but good for Miami. But Mathurin has been really productive, and I think he's going to continue to be so throughout the rest of the season.
I like Mathurin, and he was trash talking during the Rising Stars Challenge at All-Star breaks. Like, I'm in. I'm all in on Benedict Mathurin.
Did I tell you I shared a flight from Indianapolis with Mathurin?
No, did he trash talk you too?
No, he did not, but he actually got trash talked by a lady at the Charlotte airport. We had a layover in Charlotte, and he tried to order something at the Bagel Bakery of all places and didn't get his order quite right. It was almost like watching the Soup Nazi in Seinfeld, and she was yelling at him, having no idea who he was, and he's just like looking around like, I'm a millionaire. I'm an NBA player. What am I doing here getting yelled at the Bagel Bakery?
I can't get the right smear in my bagel? What's going on here?
I love it. All-Star is one-of-a-kind experience. But anyway, that's who you should pick, or any of the other great names that Josh has provided. He's from Locked On Fantasy Basketball. He's going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. Listen, who doesn't love your car, especially here in South Florida? You need a car to get from place to place. It's not exactly, transit friendly, but at the same time, you want to be able to go all over South Florida, see all the different things that South Florida has to offer. You want to keep your car riding as smoothly as possible, and you can do that with eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts for your car, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can also follow Brendan Tobin's channel on YouTube. Follow WQAM on YouTube, where he streams Tobin and Leroy live 10 to 2 Monday through Friday. The Heat have won 5 straight. They've won 9 of their last 11. They are playing their best stretch of basketball of the season. They are now 5th in the Eastern Conference. But ESPN's Tim Legler said on a podcast with my Locked On NBA co-host Adam Mares that record doesn't matter as much to Miami as it does for other teams in the league. Here's the clip courtesy of the All NBA podcast.
They are the one team in the Eastern Conference, the one team that, regardless of record, regardless of how it's gone to this point, if they show you a stretch of basketball post All-Star break where they're getting it together and they're executing and they're winning games, right? Like we're talking about the way that they're playing. Doesn't matter what the record is to that point. They're like the one team that you go, man, if they're playing right at the right time of the year, look out, because, who knows? We don't have to predict where this is all going to go yet. That's not, people want you to every day. That's not what we have to do. But I'm just telling you, you look at teams like Cleveland, the Bucks, the Knicks, like some of these other teams that we've been talking about that are trying to grab onto that second spot, like who's going to challenge the Celtics. Then you get the Heat playing like this at this time of the year, and you want to put any of those teams I just mentioned, those three teams in a best of 7 with the Miami Heat. I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of people, if the Heat are fully healthy, are going to pick Miami to beat any of those teams in a best of 7 if it started today. Yep. And that's what the Heat can do to you when they put together a stretch like this because of their track record and how well they're coached.
Tobin, do you agree?
Thanks.
I mean, do I agree? Of course I agree. Tim Legler is not one of the bums. I mean, like, he realizes what it is. The Miami Heat, this whole idea of does the record matter? I mean, they proved last year that it doesn't. But if we want to even just talk about, people's belief in them, even when they were the 1 seed, nobody really was thinking that they were going to do anything special that year. So I really think from the outside noise, you can't find a team that cares about it less. But from the standpoint of we went into this year, and I think we were all worried with validity. Like, was this going to get too stale? Did they lose? Are they going to be able to make up for the losses of Gabe Vincent and Max Strus? What is going to happen with Kyle Lowry? And they've really kind of answered solutions for all of that stuff. They've gotten great performances from Jaime Jaquez, who looks like he's ready to contribute in the playoffs. The thing I'm probably most surprised with is Spo does appear. We'll see when Tyler gets back, but he does seem to now be buying into Nikola Jovic and seeing the vision of what that can do for them in certain matchups. They got a ton of guys they could throw on the wing with Haywood Highsmith. Caleb Martin already proved himself last year. And, the X factor, I think, is really, their backcourt with Terry and Tyler, because Tyler's got a huge stage here where he gets to prove it. That he's itching to do that in the postseason. And Terry Rozier, I mean, he's fawning over. He'll do anything the team asks him to do after yesterday's game. So it's not only the case that they got the foundation of the two guys with Bam and Jimmy, who have proven they can go toe-to-toe with any duo in the conference, but now the pieces around them just seem like they're set up a lot better. So, and I don't even think this is going to be like this crazy thing. I think everybody's expecting Miami to be in this spot where they may go 8th. And we know, look, I think we're all a little shell-shocked because they can go Jekyll and Hyde. But I don't know, guys. Something about this run feels different. It feels like they genuinely fixed things, because I even felt in the losing streak, I was like, well, this wasn't like last year. Last year it was coin flip clutch games. You guys could close your eyes and every Heat game was the same. This year, it was like when the things were starting to fall apart, you were like, it really genuinely felt like they were getting the doors blown off them and couldn't compete with anybody decent. And they were able to configure some things and get it right. And I do genuinely think this is a team that it's not out of the realm of possibility they finish 3rd in this conference and probably aren't in that dire a situation. Especially with this month, they got a bunch of Pistons and Wizards coming up this month.
They have one of the easiest schedules left in the league. Yeah, I mean, and once you get past this Thursday night game in Denver, which is primetime television, everybody's going to want to watch that one. I don't know where they're going to end up in the standings, but I'm at the point now where I don't even care. I just stay out of the play-in. That's it. That's the job. Go ahead.
About the Denver game, though, do you think it's like not necessarily a quote-unquote must-win, but in order to kind of validate this surge, especially in national coverage, we got Zach Lowe saying this, we got Tim Legler, et cetera. Like, there people are starting to get onto the hype train when it comes to Miami. And obviously, we know the team as well and better than most of those people. But at the same time, there's a believability, as you just said, Tobin, about this win streak and everything that this team is building towards. But you kind of want to validate it on a national scale. And this opportunity to beat Denver at Denver seems like a great opportunity to do so. So is it kind of a must win in order for Miami to show that they can compete at a high level and can take on a Western Conference opponent, that it's not just we're good enough to get to the Eastern Conference, but then once we take on whoever we can and
good enough to beat Sacramento and who's been a little blah and a bad
New Orleans, et cetera. Yeah, we can beat up on the mid-tier teams, but not necessarily the upper echelon.
I think there's some fairness to that, because if you even look over this run, like their 2 losses are probably to the 2 teams you would say are as legit to take for the title, but they did seem like they could go toe to toe with those teams. Like that was the thing that I was
The Clippers
happiest with. Like, not a moral victory guy, but
Yep.
the thing that I was disappointed with a lot of the matchups leading up to that was they didn't even look like they could stay on the floor with contenders. And then that seems to be a change. So if you have a 3-1 trip and they don't get waxed by Denver, I think that's fine. I don't think it's going to make or break anybody's national belief, but I think certainly there's something to. I would love, David, for this team to just have the attitude of, you know what? We may not care about the regular season, but we do want to show this team that beat us in the finals pretty good a little something. And we got a couple matchups with them this month. And I would be so down if, if we saw a team that just went balls to the wall, because, they're going to come back home. They got a couple days off in between a Saturday game. So I think it'd be great. And they also, the one thing that's kind of bounced their way on this trip is they've gotten 3 teams on the second night of a back-to-back. They won their second night of a back-to-back, but they've gotten to take on 3 teams that have been on back-to-back. So I think that's going to be going for them too. I would love it if that's the attitude they show in this matchup coming up tomorrow night.
It's not must win, but it's must compete, right? Like they felt good. I know that the Heat will always say they're not moral victories, but they felt good coming off that Boston game, even though they lost. They felt good coming off that Clippers game, even though they lost. And it felt very different than that losing streak, to your point, Tobin.
Yes.
Like this team, there's a self-belief there. So if you can go into Denver and compete with the team that I think everybody would probably pick, not everybody, but most people would pick to come out of the Western Conference. The other part of this too is that if the Heat do make the finals the way that they plan on making it, there's a good chance that you do run into the Denver Nuggets. So I think we could see some maybe experimenting in these 2 matchups coming up too, where it's like, okay, can Nico survive against Denver?
Yeah.
Like that's something we need to figure out. Are there some different lineups? What's the best backcourt solution? Who's our best answer to chase Jamal Murray around after he torched us in the finals last year? Like, what are our answers against Nikola Jokic, if there are any? And then if they're not, what do we do otherwise? Like, I think there's going to be a chance to experiment here. I think Michael Malone and the Denver Nuggets are going to take these games seriously. Also, they don't care about Miami's record, and it's not like it's a bad record, but they don't care. And so they just saw this team in the finals. I'm fascinated by all of this. I also, like I said, I don't care what the ultimate record is for the Heat as long as they're not in the play-in tournament. This game is awesome this team is awesome on the road. They're better than they are on the road than they are at home. And last playoffs, they won a game in the first 2 games on the road in every series that they played, and
Including
flipped
Denver,
home court advantage, right?
And,
so go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and also as an aside, like, look, this Denver Nuggets team was kind of talking very dismissive of Miami after they won the championship. There was a lot of, I don't know if Jimmy's listening to that stuff, but I know Bam, has rabbit ears on these types of things. So like, they were like, oh yeah, we weren't even worried about Miami. We were kind of hoping for Denver. We were kind of hoping for Boston as a tougher matchup. Like, so if I'm Miami, I want to show them something for sure.
Yep. Great point. All right. We're going to play a new game. It's going to be called Glass Half Empty or Half Full. We'll get to that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Grammarly. No matter what kind of work you do, how you communicate is key. Here we are, people who always go over the airwaves, so we know exactly what that's like as writers. Wes and I have to do our share of communication, but even whatever job you might think of, whether it's dealing with customers in retail, sending emails to clients, whatever you've got to take care of, Grammarly is the option for you because they'll help you be more concise in everything you're trying to say, find new ideas, jumpstart any kind of project you might be working on. That's what they can do for you. 96% of Grammarly users report that Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. Who doesn't want to be more impactful? It works across 500,000 apps and websites. That's great. And again, if you're just sending an email or writing an annual report, whatever you've got to do, Grammarly can save time with one click, and you go from editing drafts in hours to seconds. 93% of professionals using Grammarly's premium report that it helps them get more work done. That could really be a great way of saving time. So Grammarly is the gold standard of responsible AI with 14 years of experience and just about every IT certification under the sun. Make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Sign up and download for free today at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly, GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and in your favorite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video. Leave a comment underneath the video. Let us know what you think of this Heat win streak and what you think about the return of Emo Jimmy Butler. The Heat play the Nuggets tonight, or Thursday night, 10 Eastern. It's a big NBA Finals rematch that you're not going to want to miss. Catch every minute of the Heat hometown broadcast with SiriusXM tonight. Use the SXM app and search Heat. The Heat have won 5 in a row, so we're going to take a look at this win streak in a segment that we're calling Glass Half Empty or Half Full, where we'll go around and share something that we like and don't like about this recent stretch. Let's start with the glass half empty approach. Tobin, we'll start with you.
Something that I don't like is that it appears we're going to have the conversation once again about the starting lineup and what they do once everybody's back. We're talking about this today because it was the one thing that stood out to me with Eric Spoelstra's press conferences over these last couple of days. Man, he was fawning over Duncan Robinson. I mean, like he's, flat out just being like, hey, we're better. The offense is better with him out there. And I don't know what they do when Tyler's ready to come back because as you guys know, I'm a huge Nikola Jovic fan. I love having him in the starting lineup. And I agree with Spo with what Duncan Robinson has brought to this team. So I don't know what they do once that comes around. I think what they're going to end up doing is just start Tyler Hero again. Probably the easiest thing is just tell Duncan, hey, be the good soldier, because Duncan doesn't have an ego, I guess, like that. But that to me is the big half empty, is that there are still, I think, tough decisions to be made with this rotation that always just seems more comfortable when somebody has to go down. And I think that it always just naturally goes to a conversation about Tyler, fair or not. And, I just think that's going to be something that I'm very curious to see how it plays out over these next couple of weeks.
Is benching Terry an answer? And I know it's like, it feels almost sacrilegious to mention this considering what a big game he had against Portland. But, in the post-game broadcast, he's talking about, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Heat culture, embracing everything that you want to hear from a newly acquired player. Is he an option to bench, do you think? Like, can you afford to bench him when you bring back Tyler and have him be kind of the de facto point guard alongside Duncan Robinson? I know that makes you a little bit weak defensively overall, but if you're going
to be weak defensively, I mean, if you're the three options for the two spots are Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and Terry Rozier, you're giving something up a little bit defensively no matter what.
Yeah, I think the Terry Rozier thing is definitely interesting with him mentioning that he's willing to do anything. I think it's an easier conversation because he's new. Mm-hmm. He's been in that role before, so like I think he'd make less of a stink about it than I think Tyler would. But sure. I'm just curious about it. And I don't even think it's not a knock on Tyler, because I think Tyler is going to be valuable for this team and he's gonna win them some playoff games. But it's just too hard not to notice how good with what Duncan's brought to the table. And how do they figure this out? I think does it mean that Tyler going to the bench is the answer? Not necessarily, but I'm curious, to see what their solution is to that, because I think that I liked the way that, even with as much of a stinker as that first quarter was yesterday, the way they came out in the third, I like the look of that starting lineup that they put out with Duncan, Jovic, Terry, Jimmy, and Bam.
I wonder, I would have two starters in Sharpie with Jimmy and Bam, obviously. And then every time Spo's had a chance to bring Tyler back and bring him off the bench, he started him. Like, there was that long stretch where he was out earlier in the season. Duncan Robinson was playing awesome, kind of doing the most improved player stuff with the layups and the driving and the passing. And then as soon as Tyler was healthy, he was back in that starting lineup. That I said it then, if Spo was ever going to do it, that was his chance. And he didn't do it. And maybe he has another chance to do it now because there's been so much movement in the backcourt with the trades and Terry Rozier in there and DeLon Wrighton's in there. And I don't know, maybe there's another opportunity to do it now. But I also think there's questions about power forward. Do you go back to Caleb Martin and go small? Do you like what you've seen with Jovic? Do you trust Jovic? That's why I think this game against Denver Thursday night is going to be big. Like, what does Jovic look like against a legit team and instead of a team? No disrespect to the Sacramento Kings, but to the Sacramento Kings on the second night of back-to-back. All due disrespect to the Portland Trailblazers, but against that team, this is different. This is a different kind of animal. I don't know. It's really, really interesting, and I'm with you. It's an interesting conversation to have, but it's also just a tired one because I don't know how many times you can have it.
And I think we're going to get a tired answer because I think Tyler's going to start.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's more likely than not that Terry's going to start. And I think it's more like he's going to go with the two good soldiers. He's going to either bench Nico and maybe Nico's out of the rotation, or he's going to bench Duncan and put Duncan back off the bench. I think it probably isn't that interesting a question because that's probably what's going to happen. But it was made more interesting to me because I'm just like, man, I like the line. I like that lineup. I like that starting lineup.
Let's go glass half full. What do we have as glass half full, Tobin?
Glass half full for me is everybody has gotten back to being themselves in this win streak. Like that was the thing I just found so frustrating early on in the year, boys, was just this was a Heat team that felt very much like two young guys who are trying to take the mantle from Jimmy for a time and show that they have improved. And, but Tyler wanted to be untouchable. Bam wants to be considered amongst the elite. He's doing profiles on ESPN. No, dog in the shine. Happy that they're getting that attention. But this is still Jimmy Butler's team. He's still the dude. It all runs and goes with him. And so the fact that they got to a point where it's just like, nope, Jimmy, we all run through you. We go as you go. And then there are going to be nights where Bam can take over. And there's going to be nights where Tyler can take over and have those matchups. But I just felt like the fact that those guys have been together for 5 seasons and it took that long to figure that out was very, very annoying. So the fact that that is over with, it seems, and they have gotten back to that is my glass half full because it was really gnawing at me all season.
Sort of similar to you. My glass half full look at this is Jimmy Butler just playing like that dude, right? Like we could talk about Bam and Tyler trying to take that mantle, but it kind of falls on Jimmy Butler not being that guy for 3 months out of a season where he's kind of expecting Bam and Tyler to step up and be those guys for 3 months out of a season. But when he's playing the way he's playing now, every NBA team, it's like an ecosystem. It's like an organization. It just needs a pecking order. And Jimmy Butler is sort of the CEO among the guys on the roster. And when he's just sort of like out golfing for 3 months out of the year, instead of taking care of business, it puts a lot of extra work on those other guys that might not be ready for that. But over these last 9 games, Jimmy Butler is averaging 24 points a game on 57% shooting, 54% from three-point range. He might actually back his way into a 50-40-90 year somehow. Yep. 6 assists, 7.6 rebounds, 2.3 steals, a two-way superstar. He's playing at an all-NBA level right now. And when he's doing that, it just puts everything in order. Tyler Hero knows what he has to do. Terry Rozier knows what he has to do. There's less pressure on Bam to be that offensive guy, and he could do all the other things that he does at an elite level. Like, everything just makes sense, to your point, Tobin, when Jimmy Butler is playing like this, but only when Jimmy Butler is playing like this. And I hope he continues to play like this going forward, at least in the playoffs, because that's when they're going to need him the most. Yeah. All right, David, last word on this, and then we got to go.
Yeah, no, to me, I know I might be a sucker for this and maybe overstating it a little bit, but I am just such a big fan of the positivity and the good vibes. And I know, yes, the power of friendship. I really, look, we talk about this team and the different mindset of Jimmy Butler as a superstar and everything else, and the fact that they can challenge any team in the Eastern Conference, etc. But I mean, just seeing this team feel good about itself without the dour just cloud of Kyle Lowry hanging around in that locker room, and just everybody kind of just vibing at the right times and bringing in guys that want to be here. And I think there's so much to adding a guy like DeLon Wright and Terry Rozier saying, I've been wanting to be here for a long time. That matters so much. And I think there's a positivity to that. And you see Kevin Love at his age having this incredible renaissance, this bounce back season. Everybody's playing for one another. There is something to it. I think it makes this team not just fun to watch, but also infinitely more dangerous as well. So that is absolutely my glass half full.
They have been fun to watch. And they've been kind of miserable to watch for stretches over these last few years, but they are very, very fun to watch right now. It helps that they're winning games. We'll see what happens Thursday night in Denver. Tobin, thanks so much for joining us. It's always a blast to have you. Tobin and Leroy, 10 to 2 on WQAM, also streaming on YouTube Live during those times. Thanks, man. We really appreciate it. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast app.